We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke, Britton Financial Partners. This is the Finances podcast. Today, my guest, well, for those who have listened to the podcast before, this won't be unusual. For those people who haven't listened to the podcast before and think this is just financial planning, you might get a shock when I introduce our guest, Tania Differding, director at Achtung Campers. Tania, thanks for joining me today for the chat.
Thanks. Hopefully I have some answers.
No, I'm sure you've got plenty to talk about. And as I've always done, I've talked about most of the stuff before we've actually hit record. So now, I was thinking about this, and I just said to you before we started hit record that I think the common misconception for people in my world, in financial planning world, is that financial planning is all about financial planning, when it actually couldn't be further from the truth. Financial planning is actually more around lifestyle planning, which is where I think the intersection between what you do and what I do seem to cross over. We spoke just before that we've got some mutual clients, so clients of mine that have in their retirement years decided it's time to get themselves into van life and get out on the road. Let's talk a little bit about your background and how we bring ourselves up to date with Achtung Campers.
Yes, my background was in advertising and marketing. So I had a good background in how to sell something. And I think that was what helped our business get off the ground, really. And I think one of the keys to success in general when you're going to start your own business or run your own business is just to be really honest with yourself about what you don't know. So I know that I know marketing, but I also know that I'm really shit at everything else. I don't understand accounting. I can't work out zero. My accounting system is a plastic bag in the corner where the receipts go in year after year. Well, nice. It was, until I could afford professionals to do those roles. But I think a lot of things, and especially marketing, is one of those things. When I did work in that field in advertising, that a lot of businesses, especially smaller ones, can think they can do themselves. Or, it's all opinion if something looks good and I think there are professionals who do that and it's worth paying them. Because at the end of the day, my favourite saying is you can't sell a secret.
Yeah.
So you might have a great product, but if nobody knows about it, what's the point?
Yeah, it's good for shit, isn't it? Can I, at the risk of going back a little bit further, marketing. So what was the motivation for you to get into marketing? Like if you go back to your early days, were you... was marketing sort of in your blood? Was it in your family, or did you not know what you were going to do when you left school?
No, I've always been a writer and I've always loved writing, and I still love writing. I do travel writing now. I write for magazines, for Caravan World and Wanderer magazine and other websites, on your magazine as well. And I've always loved writing my whole life. I wrote poetry when I was younger. I still write poetry.
Where did that come from? Where did the inspiration to be a writer come from?
I don't know. It's just I always thought it was the only thing I was good at. I'm good at other things I know now, but that was one of the things that came naturally to me.
Was there a point in your childhood where your parents great writers? Was there a teacher or something that inspired you to be a great writer? It was just in you already?
I don't know. I guess my mum's a librarian, so I guess I read a lot. So maybe it comes from the reading. I don't know. But,
is your family from Geelong?
No, from Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've been down here now for over 15 years. So Geelong's home now. Yeah. I love Geelong. It is way more livable than Melbourne. If I'm allowed to say that. But
of course
everything's 5 minutes away, isn't it? There's no traffic.
I think Geelong's kind of it's still a little bit of a secret. A little bit. I mean, it's being found out a little bit of recent time. Yeah. We had a bit of mass exodus from Melbourne over COVID times, but I still think I'm very biased. I've lived here virtually all my life and I love every bit of Geelong. Location, the people, the connections, small business. I love it. It's great.
You also avoid there's not a lot of pretentious people, which I really like.
Yeah.
Mostly people in Geelong are down to earth, and it's a nice
it's still a country town.
At the heart, I agree. Yeah. But you can still go to a nice wine bar. There are multiple wine bars now.
Many more than there was 10 years ago.
Fancy restaurants. Like you've got all the good bits but none of the bad bits. So so I've always loved writing and been good at that. And then I thought maybe I'll do journalism, but I did read about PR and I thought that was I only work well under pressure. I've got ADHD, and that means I only work well under pressure.
Yeah,
so
give me a tight timeline, I'll get it done.
yeah, I'll only do, like I was scribbling these notes in the car on the way here. Like that's the only way I really can work. And I guess I knew that about myself even when I was in high school. And when I read the careers guide and I looked through all the careers and I didn't know what public relations was, and I read about that it was sort of there's crisis management in PR, and there's, event management, and a lot of it's high pressure, and there's also writing involved. And I thought, that's what I want to do.
You.
Yeah. And then so I studied that at uni. And then my first job I got in advertising. So that was perfect.
Yeah. Your ADHD diagnosis, did that come early or was that later?
That was only during COVID, which I think happened to a lot of people over that time. Like, that was I think it was a tough time for everybody, but I think that's where a lot of mental health issues came out of the woodwork for people, because they were, stuck at home without any distractions and without all the things they usually use to get by. And you couldn't do that anymore. So you're faced with what's inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of guests on the podcast in the disability support space, I suppose, NDIS, but I suppose the connection being that a lot more people of recent time are now being diagnosed with ADHD or ASD, autism spectrum disorder. And my question was always, is the prevalence more, or are we just doing a better job of actually of identifying where people have differences in the way they process information? I think it's maybe a combination of both.
I would say that we're just diagnosing it properly now. Like definitely knowing like an ASD is an overlap with ADHD. So a lot of it's the same. It's one and the same in a lot of ways. And knowing it intimately now, knowing all the little signs and things, I could pick someone within 3 minutes and say, you probably wouldn't say it out loud, but I can tell if, or even kids as well. And I think then you can easily think back and say, I know that, a lot of kids when I was young had it, but we didn't know what it was then, or no one was being diagnosed. And that's the same. A lot of my friends my age have it. And I'll tell them, and they're not diagnosed, but it's a superpower in itself.
That's the exact word that I was actually going to use, was that if directed in the right manner, it is an absolute superpower.
Yeah, there are a lot of, I could be down and depressed about it and think about all the negatives and how it does make, in some ways, life more difficult. But there are also just as many awesome parts. Yeah. And I think if I had a choice, if I would choose to have it or not, I'd choose to have it. Like it's makes me who I am in all the best ways. And I definitely wouldn't be successful, have a successful business without it. So I've got to thank that for, I can get more done in a day than the average person. I work 1,000,000 miles an hour. I can do 50,000 things at once. My brain works way faster than other people's. And I think that's lucky for me. So
100%. Yeah, I think, and at the end of the day, I think the danger is putting labels on people. But at the end of the day, we all exist on a spectrum, don't we?
Yeah,
we all exist on a spectrum of the way we process information, the way we view the world.
Yeah.
And I think trying to find as early on in life as you can what your superpower is, and then have it directed in the right manner. I've got a couple of kids who are on the spectrum, and to me, it's their personality, it's who they are, it's their superpower. Yeah. And I think acknowledging it early allows you to say, hey, this is going to be, this is your strength, rather than pushing against a brick wall with things that just aren't going to suit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, with kids as well, it just makes you more interesting, I think. Like, you would know that then, like they might say something that you don't expect. And it's like, how interesting. We're not standing with someone else who's going to sound like everybody else. Yeah. Like, let's have a bit of interest in our day and have someone who's a little bit different around. And great.
The lack of a filter is refreshing.
Yeah, I apologise every day for offending people, and I do, and I really don't mean it. But at the end of the day, at least everyone knows where they stand with me, and I'm an open book.
Yeah. So back to how no, that's good. It's all good. You can digress as much as we like. So you sort of found your path and your calling in sort of public relations and media and marketing. How long were you in that space?
Maybe 8 years. Okay. 7, 8 years.
So this is all in Melbourne?
No, actually my first job was at the best place I ever worked, and I tried to model my culture at work from there, and it was called Pace Advertising. It's still in Geelong.
Pace,
and Nick there was just the best boss, and the whole, they had a really good culture. They still do, I'm sure. Like, he's still there. Like, it's just a great culture.
So what's memorable about that culture?
It was small, but everyone was just, we had always joking around. Everyone loved to come in. Like, he's a lovely guy. He's encouraging. Like, that was my first job, and he was always very encouraging. Like, he'd ask my opinion on, like, that we'd do a TV ad, and he'd say, come in and what do you think about this? And I'd say, oh, I don't know anything about this. I just finished uni, but if you're going to ask me, I'd say this. And then he'd say, don't ever say that you don't know anything about it. You're here and I'm asking you and you do. And I thought, all right, that's, I got to remember that, because a lot of women as well, and probably more prevalent, that we talk ourselves down a little bit. We do, that, what is it called, imposter syndrome as well, where we, in the workplace, someone asks your opinion, you say, oh, I'm not sure, but maybe this, it's like we should be more sure of ourselves because we are the experts. Like, yeah, and it is like people buy your confidence in yourself too.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mentioned off air that we, a lot of the team here do a morning Zoom call with Jocko Willink, who's got a business consultancy, Echelon Front. One of the things that I think you mentioned it this morning in terms of understanding other people's perspective, and we try and do it here a lot, is constantly asking someone, what do you think? Yeah. Like, actually, what do you think? But not just for show, because you're actually genuinely interested in what someone else's perspective on a situation is, whether they're a graduate, whether they've been, whether it's Peter, our principal, who's 70 and been around for a long time. If someone's asking me a question, I'll genuinely say, what do you think? Yeah. Because I'm genuinely interested, and it provides people with a sense of ownership. Like it provides people with a sense of being in control or being able to contribute to the outcome of whatever you're doing, rather than just being a passenger, which I think is super important, particularly in small business. I mean, culture in small business is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Without that culture, it's great how you can kind of, as you go through your working life, you kind of grab the best bits of the businesses, because we're all duplicating or copying little bits of what we've seen that's actually worked really well. Yeah. So Pace was the best place you ever worked at. Yeah. You had 8 years in marketing. Where else did you work prior to or lead up to the establishment of Achtung?
Yeah, at a creative agency, which is closed down now, called Working Girls, and they just did creative work, which was that was in Melbourne, and that was my Melbourne boutique agency experience. So that was very different to working down in Geelong, which was a much faster pace up in Melbourne. Again, great experience. And then my last job was at a bigger international agency called Ogilvy, which is one of the biggest in the world. And that was a great last place to work because I worked on the BMW account. Okay. So it was like a luxury car brand, and I took a lot of the ideas of what they did for their clients from there and moved them over to Achtung by, we just do little thing, like we try to make it an experience for clients. We have it, there's the journey they go through from the beginning to the end. We send a little thank you gift pack in the mail after they've, months later after they've driven away. And they've got a little process like that they would have done that I've taken off, and like the EDMs, which are emails. That you get, which you probably hate. But if you do love the brand, you like getting the EDMs, right? Yeah. And we try to, we send them out intermittently, and they're really interesting, and just things like that. So
what was the difference between Pace and, say, BMW? Was it culture was a little bit different?
I would prefer, I think a smaller place is always nicer because you just get to know people better, and your boss, and that's really nice to know who you're working for, and if they're a nice boss, it works in their favour too, you know.
It's fun. I had a friend of mine who has his own PR company. Shout out to Luke Derbyshire at Bespoke PR in WA. And he worked in his early days, he worked for a PR company called Roland Pinder. I'm not sure whether you know them, but he said it was the most horrible workplace that he'd ever worked in. Sorry, Luke, if I'm shouting you out there. But he said he learnt the most he's ever learned in sort of PR marketing. It just set him up. So he sort of grabbed the worst bits and the best bits of the places that he'd worked and applied it now into his own very successful operation. So after 8 years in marketing and PR, how does Achtung Campers get established? What was the genesis of that business?
So my husband is a very talented tradesperson and has he's German, so they are different tradespeople to Australians. They've got different weather conditions to start, so they have to be more, precise. And there's, I guess here we don't have those conditions, it's not going to snow, for how many months. So they're just working a bit differently there. He was so he built top end sort of bar fit outs in Melbourne, some really well-known bars, worked for a really great company there, and then also learnt other trades from the people he was working with there. So welding, metalwork and things like that. And then, we've always loved camping. So built a van for us, a transporter. And yeah, look, we're both into a bit design and we sort of wanted it to look really nice as well. And so we did black ply cabinetry, which was now I would say, we actually talk clients out of black now just because it's probably for resale. It's not, it is dark in a small space but it looked cool at the time, sleek and modern, and no one else had black cabinetry. And we did like a fluoro green vinyl and a fluoro green rock and roll bed upholstery, which actually matched amazingly and looked super cool. And then I just did some competitor research online myself at night and had a look at what other businesses are around doing it, because it looked really good. The van looked great. And we were like, oh, we love this. I buy into this lifestyle. I buy into this. This is worth more than a trip, around Europe. Like, this is for me what drives me with the business every day. Owning a camper van is the ultimate freedom for me. You're like a snail. You have your home on your back. You're not tied down to any itinerary, any accommodation plans. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just go and you can change your mind or your plans at the drop of a hat. You've got everything with you, your bathroom, your bed, your food. You don't have to worry, is there going to be a restaurant closed? What time will we arrive? Well, we'll just cook. And you can park, really, if you're responsible. A lot of times you can just free park somewhere. Take your rubbish with you and don't, use the toilet in your van or use a public toilet. And then it is nice to obviously spend money in the towns you're visiting, which we do anyway. You always end up doing that anyway. You go out for a beer or coffee, or we do like to eat out. But it's just nice not having any constraints or relying on anybody else for your holiday. You're truly free, I think. And when you've got your van, it's yours. You've got all your stuff in it. You can keep all your bedding in there, a second set of bedding and your toiletries and some cans of food and pasta and stuff. And then it's like, oh, well, weather's good. Let's just go now. And you don't need any plans. You don't need anything, and you're off. Okay, where will we go, And you can park in the best spots. You can park on the water's edge in the most beautiful places in the world. And they can't build a hotel that close to the edge there. You can't. You can open up your boot and you can lay there and you're literally under the stars on the, on the water's edge. And you just can't do that in a hotel, like.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I want to go. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I buy into it. I believe it. Yeah.
It's funny. And again, this is probably a question or a statement with a fair bit of self-interest. I mentioned to you before we started that I've got a family of with 5 kids.
Yeah.
And traveling is always a challenge. Traveling's a massive challenge. But my eldest daughter, who's 17, shout out to Willow, she's been eyeing off. We've got a Mercedes van, which we've had. It's a V250. And she said, hey, Dad, do you reckon I could fit that van out? Do you reckon? Because she's been following van life, on Instagram, people of her age that are, fitting out a van and disappearing. And she said, do you think we could do something with the van as a project? I said, yeah, 100%. And so I've been just super curious about what is out there, which is one of the reasons, in addition to having mutual clients and having a chat with Jackie, but actually so curious about that lifestyle, not only for myself, but for my kids. I go, you want to see your kids get out and explore the world, and what better way to do that than, like you said, with like a snail with your house on your back.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Your transporter, which you fitted out beautifully with black interior, how long after building that did you actually establish Achtung?
Oh, very soon. Yeah, I just had a look online and did a small amount of research, and there was no one else in Victoria or South Australia doing the vans, selling camper vans at all, fitting them out.
So were you both?
We're going back a long time now. There are businesses now that have established in the past 7 years or so, but this is like
But were Ronnie and you both still working at that stage?
Well, we quit our jobs.
So you literally quit your jobs, and what
I did some basic maths and was like, this is what we both earn. We could rent a warehouse where we have to live in the warehouse. So we were already renting an apartment in Brunswick. So we'll get rid of that and we'll live in the warehouse.
So where was the warehouse in Torquay? Or was it?
No, we rented a warehouse in Northcote that was the cheapest one we could find. And the whole roof was leaking in. They were going to bulldoze. They were going to knock it down to make apartments.
Yeah.
The whole roof was leaking in, and we literally had a bed in the back of the warehouse, and it was not really livable. I think we got fleas or lice or something in the bed, maybe 3 different times. And I woke up. We were in there for 6 months. I lived in there.
Landlord's probably wrapped. You think I was not going to get any income from that, and this couple's happy to sleep there.
Yes, and I remember we had the big bins, like recycling bins and stuff, in spots next to our bed because it was just bucketing and when it was raining. And I cried so many times. I was like, I just can't live like this. But at the end of the day, it was like that was in my maths. I'd worked out that would be no overheads because that was the cost of our rent of our apartment. So we'd exchange that over. So that's no overheads for rent. And then we just had to make the money what we were earning before. And I worked out it was just the two of us. So we just needed to sell, I think it was 1 van a month. So it wasn't that many really. And I worked out, Ronnie could build a van in a month and we could make that amount of money for both of us. So
obviously with the marketing background, were you concerned about, obviously you'd done your research, but about finding a client? Can you remember your first client?
Yeah, he's still a client. Yeah, actually our first few clients are still our clients. They've actually come back after that time, sold their vans and bought a new one.
Did you have people saying, hey, I want you to build me one of those? Like when they saw yours and said, so you kind of had a bit of a waiting list of people that
maybe one or two, but we put it up for sale on Caravan Camping Sales and then had a few inquiries, and then we said, then I made just a basic website page. I got paid someone, I think it was like $200 to do a basic website page and just went from there. So because we didn't need to do a lot of work, 12 a year, so it was pretty easy. But as business goes, they say if it's not growing, it's dying. So, and then it became it rolled on by itself and we were taken along for the ride. And then there were, 100 calls and then it was like, oh, what are we going to do now? And then it just kept going from there. So,
that organic growth, which is kind of better than the alternative. Like you said, if you're not growing, you're kind of dying. You're going backwards. You mentioned, again, I think before we started about some of the inspiration in business. One of the first books you read was
Tim Ferriss's Work Week. That was the 4-hour work week. So I think I'd recommend that to anyone who's starting a business or who has a business. Just the idea of automation and just automating anything you can, I think is pretty basic. And it's, you find a good web developer or somebody who's going to do your web stuff and pay them what they ask you to pay them because it's worth it, because it will take out hours of work each week for you. So, I was pregnant. I had no staff. I couldn't afford any staff. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do a quote for every single van, every single person that contacts me, or take these calls when I have a newborn, or take these calls, every single call. So then I just, that book taught me to how am I going to automate all of these things, and create a website where now you can go online and do everything. You can get your quotes online. You can get all the prices are online. There's videos of everything online. There's a blog on every single question that anyone's ever asked. There's a blog on that online. You can make appointment online. And I think those are just little basic things that anyone can do on their website. The web developer's going to charge you for it, but that's a one-off cost and you're saving that in time for the rest of your life,
You're creating efficiencies. I know having bought, I think I said that Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week was one of my first ever book purchases in business, and certainly set the foundation, sent me down a few rabbit holes of people that I now follow and inspired what we do here in business. A book that there's lots of updated editions, obviously, because there's a lot of references to web technology and sort of automation. So if anyone's out there, make sure you buy the up-to-date edition of it. And Tim's got a podcast that's floating around that he also has some great stuff on there. So talking about sort of efficiencies and you making the most effective use of your time, fast forward from when you established Achtung Campers, was it always called Achtung Campers?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What's the genesis of that name?
Look, we wanted something German, and you do always see the Achtung signs when you are like hiking or in, dangerous places in, national parks and things like crocodiles around or whatever. So I think if you do get out in nature, you will have seen that word.
Or if you listen to U2.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it's kind of like attention camper, so yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit from how long ago was it you're in that warehouse, that grubby, leaking warehouse in Melbourne?
Yeah, over maybe about 10 to 12 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to where you are today. Like, how big's Achtung Campers? How many staff do you have? How many vans are you producing a year?
Yeah, so we have, I think, about 12 to 14 staff, I would say. Yeah, and we're doing 60 6 vans a year.
It's a little bit more than one a month.
Yeah, we would like to do, the plan for this year was to up it to 100 or 90, but our main issue ongoing is with probably a lot of businesses since COVID is supply of supplies, and for us it's the production of the vehicles. So we can't get, the vehicles aren't being produced anymore by Volkswagen. There's always problems with supply of the vans, so getting them in the number we need and getting them in when they're meant to be coming. And so it's just like, I think it's just been treading water and finding vans, getting vans.
So COVID would have been a very interesting time for you, because obviously supply chains were limited, but at the same time, every man and his dog, and I can say this from personal experience, wanted to go and travel. They travel like domestically because they couldn't go overseas. So how did you guys grapple with that?
Yes, that's right. Everyone at the time was saying, oh, this is so good for you guys. And we're like, it is. A lot of people are wanting a van. We've got a massive list, but we can't do them because we can't get the vans.
So were you predominantly Volkswagen or Mercedes?
We've only been doing, we used to do Hyundais, but they've changed the iLoad to something that's more of a people mover now. So we don't do them anymore. Transporters and the Crafters, which are Volkswagen, and now we also do the Mercedes Vitos, which we've had to do because they're a great European built quality van. But
is that the equivalent of my V250?
I think so. If it's like a people mover size.
8-seater?
Yeah, that's the V. Yeah, the V. Yeah, so we could do your V2.
Okay, yeah, cool.
I don't know if I could fit 8. No, I couldn't fit 7 people.
No, I think
with a bed.
I've thought about this. If we're traveling, we have to go in
caravan
or a couple of cars. Like we've got to have a camper and then a 4-wheel drive and a caravan.
You probably need a caravan. Yeah, which is also fun, like just as much fun.
Yeah, but I can get away occasionally. I'm getting it
on your own.
Well, now the kids are a little bit older, Kari and I can actually get away. So converting the van would actually make sense because the eldest girls could use it, and Kari and I could disappear. Like you said, it's there and just ready to go, rather than thinking, where are we going to stay? You can just pick it up.
It's expensive tonight to book accommodation.
Yeah. Oh, the van. So the Volkswagen in COVID. So Volkswagen, Mercedes, Hyundai, which you don't do anymore. The challenges in COVID. So you couldn't get vehicles, but everyone wanted them.
Yeah. Also, we do the 4Motion or 4-wheel drive transporters and crafters, and parts shortages, semiconductor shortages due to war in Ukraine. It started before that. It was to do with COVID. I don't really understand. Something to do with water shortage somewhere in the world, but semiconductor shortage meant a big problem as well. And so, but this is snowballed on, and we still can't get 4Motion vans. Yeah. So, and that a lot of people in Australia want to be able to go off-road.
So 4Motion meaning 4-wheel drive vans. Yeah. I actually noticed
So they're not being produced like that. You can't buy them. Nobody. So it's kind of like that's been at least for a year or two now, and another year at least. So there's just a massive market out there that car producers are just not able to
fulfill. Yeah. So what do you do in the interim? What, like, are most of your builds new builds? So
we only do new. Yeah.
So no fit out.
We do them.
You can't fit out my Mercedes.
We do. We do when we've got holes. When we are for example, there is a problem with the supply coming in with the van, then we will fill them with people supplying their own van. Okay, but it's not our general MO.
Sure. Yeah. So let's talk about your usual MO. Who's your usual client? Who are they? And I'm thinking about all my listeners out there. So I've got everything from young ones like my daughter to families like myself, maybe not as many kids, through to our pre-retiree and our retirees, those sort of the nomads. Yeah. Who's your ideal client?
Yeah. So there'd be primarily, I would say, retirees. Yeah. Just like retiring age is just about around that, like they can see it. It's just very close. It's like a year away, and then they're just looking now because they're like, we can smell the freedom. So what are we going to do with our money and time? Yeah, like generally a lot of them have had a combi when they were younger, when they were like, in their 20s or whatever, and they remember that as a really great time and they want to go back and do that again. Or they are into outdoors, they've been camping a lot and they're like, we don't want to rough it anymore. We can afford something a bit nicer. Yeah. Also getting a lot of people who are sort of my age. So early mid 40s who are crazily enough, some people my age have already got kids that have grown up and they're free already. I've got an 8-year-old, so I'm not close. And also who never had kids, so now have the disposable income at my age to just do whatever they want, which is also pretty good lifestyle
Yeah.
for when you're in your 40s. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm not sure whether I mentioned it at the beginning, that with the fact that sort of financial planning in my world is, it's not really financial planning, it's lifestyle planning, but lifestyle is very dependent for a lot of people around their ability to fund things that they want to do.
Yeah.
I think we're very encouraging as a business with all of our clients to say, you know, it's not much point having all this money. You spend all your life building and accumulating and protecting all this wealth. If you actually don't use it to a lifestyle end, to do something that you actually want to do, like having a passion for outdoors or, like you said, having not wanting to rough it as much. But a lot of people don't know whether or not they can actually afford to do those kinds of things. And unfortunately, too many people will kind of kick the can down the road and say, listen, someday, one day, then I'll do it. But someday sometimes never comes. Yeah. So while you've got the trifecta in my mind, which is time, money, so you're retired, you've got time, you've got money, you've accumulated all of your wealth over your working life. The third one, which most people take for granted, is the health and their ability to actually go, or mobility, the ability to actually go and enjoy and get out and see the world and go around and travel. Because once that's gone, doesn't matter how much money you've got, doesn't matter how much time you've got, if your health doesn't allow you to, it's really hard to do those lifestyle things that you want to do. So as early on in your life as you can, you need to go and see Tania and the team at Achtung so they can get you a camper sorted.
It is true. The worst thing we do see ongoing is people coming in and they've just left it too late. So this is our dream. We have people coming in and they say, no, this is our dream. We've always wanted one of these vans our whole life. And now my husband has a cancer diagnosis and he has a year. How quickly can you build a van? Yeah. And we say, oh, look, we were booked out for 9 months, you know. And then, you know, we've done many where the person's passed away before the van's been finished, or even older people who have kind of left it a little bit too late and have come in, and you do need a little bit of fitness, you know, to put the pop top up and down, and just you're living outside some of the time as well, you know, and they'll come and then they'll have the van for a year or 6 months, and then they'll say, hey, I'll send an email and be like, I'm really sad, but my eyesight's actually got really bad, and I'm having to sell it now. And it's like, that, you know, and they all say the same thing, which is, I wish we did it earlier, but I guess you need to have the means as well at the time. I think people do wait a little bit too long.
They definitely do. Yeah. I think that's it's kind of human nature.
Yeah.
My wife's very good at being reactive. She's excellent. I'm actually a little bit more conservative. I'm much more considered. Yeah. But I think sometimes you got to have a nice balance of both, of reacting and saying we're going to do something, but also having, I suppose, the financial responsibility to say, hey, let's make sure that we don't bankrupt ourselves doing this. Yeah. You find that happy medium in the middle, which is why we encourage people to go and talk to someone. Like if you've got a dream to actually go and travel Australia in a camper, you should go and talk to you guys and say, hey, how much does it cost? Like what's it going to look like? What's going to serve my needs? And I'm assuming that, I suppose the question is for people out there that maybe have a dream or an ambition and they're wanting to get themselves a van, what should they do when they're coming to speak to you? What are the types of things you help them out with in terms of determining what's suitable for them?
Yeah, a big part is, have they camped before, you know? Like, because there's very different types of camping. There's people who camp in caravan parks and will always be in caravan parks and paying, you know, for powered site and use the kitchen there and the toilets and showers and all the rest. And that's great. Like, that's very social. You'll always be camping with other people. They make friends. They're having happy hour every night. They're walking up to the local pub for dinner. Yeah, that is super social and easier. What I prefer is to just go to national parks or free camping in the bush where there's no one around, you know, like on a river somewhere, or there's so many beautiful national parks in Australia. And you can't do that camping, you know, in Europe at all. You know, it's just too populated. You can't free camp. There are no national parks like camping, you know. And so we're so lucky we've got that here, and that's very different. You're not going to plug in anywhere for power. You have to be able to be self-sufficient and take your rubbish with you and, you know, think about all those things.
So do you guys help people make those decisions?
Yeah, we just kind of ask them, what do you see yourself doing more? Would you be more comfortable? You know, do you think you're going to be, you know, paying for staying in caravan parks more, like, you know, the big ones? We've got all the facilities and using that, or do you want to just be in national parks and be on your own and not have any of that? Yeah.
This probably goes back to some of the Tim Ferriss principles of decision fatigue. One of the things I notice is that people work themselves up so much trying to think about all the possible options. And this is one of the things that you need to outsource. Like outsource some of that thinking to someone that actually knows it and can help as a removed third party saying, hey, here's some of the things that you should consider. It's great. It's actually refreshing to outsource some of that thinking and have someone help you say, oh, this is actually what I think would be most suitable, rather than you sitting at home thinking, I've got to have all the ideas. I've got to go to them ready with my exact plan of my van. That's, I'm assuming, not the case.
No. Yeah. Just as long as you've got an idea of what you think you're going to want to do, what would suit you best. And if you are sort of more social and want to be with people more, like, if you're on your own and you do want to meet people most of the time when you're away, and you do want to be able to just walk everywhere and have your shower and everything like that externally as opposed to in your van. Yeah, just have an idea of sort of what you're planning on doing.
So what are some of the most sought after options? Like, I know we could go, I'm sure you've got a laundry list of options, but what are the key decision points? Like you mentioned, like having like toileting and shower facilities in your van versus having them external. What are some of the other key things that people should consider?
Yeah, I think it does all come down to that, like how you're going to travel, really. And everyone travels differently, and every single feature we offer is optional. So you can sort of pick and mix. But I think, some people hate microwaves. Like in general, they just have a thing against the microwave, or some people want to have a TV, some people don't, it's just like personal preference of how you want to live and what you want to do while you're away. We do have like a Wi-Fi booster, which is amazing. If you're working on the road, you can press the button and it will give you internet and mobile phone coverage where you wouldn't have it, where there's nothing, which is, if you're working on the road, that's what you're going to be doing, and you're going to be living on the road for longer periods, and that's amazing for you. But some people are going away on a holiday to escape, and they don't want mobile phone coverage, and that's the whole point of going away camping in the bush, is to not have that coverage. So it's like, it really depends on everybody's sort of personal travel, what they want to do.
What would your must-haves be? Like, I was thinking about refrigeration and cooking, and like what, from your perspective, is kind of must-have? Yeah,
well, I think the things that a fridge, obviously, just the basics, like the pop-top roof, which we fit in every van, which is expensive, but I think without that you can't stand up straight in the van. So
is that an aftermarket modification you guys do to the vans?
Yeah. So without that, without being able to stand up in there, you can't really cook in there or get changed in there or do much without crouching. So it's just not really livable for longer periods.
Sure.
So that's something that people might go, why would I want to stand up in there? Well, if it's raining, you probably want us to be in there, and it just helps you organise yourself better in there as well. And you can sleep someone in there as well, so you can sleep someone extra. You got an extra bed. Otherwise, I don't really think anything is a necessity. I mean, I think what the necessities are the real basics, like, when you see someone that's done a DIY camper van, the first thing I'll look at is like, you've got a bed in there, you've got a light, you've done all that, but you've got you don't have any curtains.
Yeah.
Or you've just got really bad, thin things hanging off. I'd be like, that's like a just necessity for me, having good curtains.
Yeah.
And ours are 100% block out because I don't want to be woken up in the morning by the sun. And I think that's curtains, electrics, like being able to turn the light, a light on, just the bed. Yeah.
How many weird and wonderful requests have you had? I mean, I've got plenty of stupid questions in my head that I'm thinking, even air conditioning. Like, how do you put an air conditioner unit on it so if the car's not running? We've done
aircon. Yeah, we do aircon, but that's to use that you have to be plugged into a power at a caravan park.
Yep.
And we can say,
or your own source. No,
no, it would be a generator or something. The aircon's quite power
hungry.
Yeah. But, again, we might say, oh, no, aircon, that's just a silly luxury. But we have clients in Darwin. So it's like, oh, hang on, I was in Kakadu in a van 2 years ago, and actually I would have bloody loved some aircon up then. So I can see that. And then again, we do a heater, which is a diesel heater, which is great. And a lot of times people ask, do I need the heater? And it's like, well, where do you live? When are you going to travel? Like some people travel they want the van to go to the snow and go snowboarding and stuff.
Yeah.
Or they live in Tassie. And then it's like, well, maybe a heater's a good investment for you.
How many people do you have get their van, go and use it, and then realise, there's 2 or 3 things that I would love to add to?
Yeah, that's ideally what we would like. So if anything, as I said, all of our features are optional. So if anything, we'll tell people to just go on the minimum. And if you're not sure, most of the things you can add later. At least we've got them all marked if you can add them later. We won't charge more to come back later and get them added. So I think more we have people who put features on and then we see their van a year later, or we speak to them, or they come back and get something, checked, and they haven't used a lot of the features. And that's, I think, a bit disappointing because it's a waste of resources, waste of their money, a waste of time.
Yeah.
So generally we'll talk people out of things and say, do you really think you're going to need that? And if you're not sure, you go and take it with what minimum and then go use it and come back again, and we can add it later, because it's more people coming back where they haven't used things as opposed to have, or they're using their microwave as like to store their undies or something, or socks,
dry them.
Yeah.
What's the future hold for Achtung Camper? So you've grown over the course of the last, was it 8 to 10 years? How long? So 8 to 10 years
10
to
plus, yeah.
Yep. So to a dozen or more people doing from 12 vans to 66, aiming for 100 vans a year. What's the future look like, and what's the market look like in Geelong?
Our plan was this year to open something up in Sydney, like a showroom. We do have like an after-sales service point there and in Queensland. So we wanted to expand to Sydney, but just because of the supply of vans, we've just had to we couldn't, I don't think, get 90 vans a year. So next year, I think we're just going to bide our time till we know what's happening with the new transporter, which we are still waiting on the T7. We don't know anything about it. So once we know what's happening with that, we're also going to be doing the new Ford.
So this is stupid. The transporter's a Volkswagen?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Also the new Ford we want to do when that comes out next year, which we're waiting on getting a...
What's the Ford version?
It'll be a van. I'm not sure what type, but it'll be similar to the transporter.
Okay.
So when that comes out next year, we'll get that and then fit that out. But once we've got the production, that kind of thing sorted, the supply of vans, and we'd like to open up something in Sydney and do maybe 100 vans a year, hopefully maybe 2025.
Yep. Now, I don't think I mentioned you guys are in Mercer Street. Yep. So you went from, was it Northcote? No,
Yes.
Northcote to Torquay to Mercer Street. Are all the vehicles produced in Mercer Street in Geelong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in terms of aftermarket servicing, is that all done there, or with like Volkswagen or Mercedes, whoever the car comes from?
Yeah. So the actual, mechanical Volkswagen side to do with the actual vehicle is through Volkswagen, their normal warranty, or Mercedes as their standard warranty. You just go as normal. But the camper van features are through us in Geelong. And we do a complimentary service every, I think it's first year, second year, and 5 years or something.
Yep. And
we also have after sales service in points in Sydney and Queensland for that as well. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
With warranty, so what's the story with warranty when, I assume that if I went and bought a brand new Mercedes van and started chopping it up, I'm going to put my warranty at risk?
Yeah, not ours. No, no, it's all, the warranties are all still valid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else about Achtung haven't I asked you that you'd love to talk about, Tania, before we sign this one off?
I think the only other things that I'd noted down that I thought, I guess if anyone's starting a business or running a business, the other things that I found really useful or helpful for me were, I guess, just the importance of being your own customer and just using your product all the time. Every van we do, so every time we change something with a van or bring out a new model, we will go and camp in that van.
Yeah.
We lived in the craft of the motorhome. We did the first one. We went for 6 months and travelled around Australia and went to Kathmandu and did everything with it because we tried to ruin that thing. Yeah. And it was great. Everything went wrong, and it was awesome. And I think if you're not using your product, you're just not going to know what the experience is from the client and how it can be improved.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that on using your own product. Tell us a little bit about some of the places you've been. I think, am I right in saying that you've done a chunk of Australia? Let's talk a little bit about...
We've done all of Australia. We've done it with my daughter the first trip we took her on when she was 6 6 weeks old. So she's grown up in the vans. And that was another level of complexity, having a baby in the van, without a toilet. Like that was, or doing toilet training with a child in a van without a toilet. Now we have a van with a toilet.
Are there any baby or young child specific modifications that you...
Oh yeah, we've got it all. We had a bed in the roof, in the pop top roof for her, but we had to create like a plug thing. So with a little handle. So basically she'll hop up in there and then we'd plug her in so she couldn't fall out at night and roll out, because an adult, you're not going to roll out of a small space, which you'd use to crawl back in and out, but a little 2-year-old or 1-year-old would.
It's a bit like the bulkhead in their aeroplane. I remember having to put like a clip over the kids when they were so they wouldn't actually drop out. Yeah. So what some of your favourite places
taking the pram in the van and all that crap you have to take.
What were some of your other favourite places in Australia? And then we'll go, you've done a little bit through Europe as well, I'd imagine. So best places in Australia to travel in the van?
I do like this place between Sydney and Byron Bay is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like there's so many beautiful little beaches. It's not that far. Queensland's so much further. And I think that New South Wales coastline, that just between Byron and Sydney is probably the most beautiful and just most concentrated area of beautiful beaches and spots, like Jervis Bay all around there. Yeah. Ulladulla. There's just so many beautiful spots there.
I think one of my first trips in a van was we hired the university van from Deakin University. I went to Deakin Uni and for some reason they let students actually rent the van for like nothing. Like it was a big high ace or something. I think it fit like 12 people and we got all of our mates together and we did a surf trip and we went via Queanbeyan, jumped over the Great Dividing Range, popped out at Bateman's Bay and then did Bateman's Bay, Ulladulla. We ended up, I think we blew the van up. So we blew the diff up on the van, brand new van going through just after Sydney through the Blue Mountains and ended up getting stuck in Redhead. So we were stuck in Redhead for, 2 or 3 days while we had the van fixed and then ended up making it to Byron Bay for New Year's Eve as a 19-year-old, a group of 19-year-old guys.
Perfect.
It was so much fun. I have such fond memories of those times with my mates. And like you said, sometimes people have those experiences, whether it be in a combi van or with their friends, and they want to relive that.
Yes, like really, I think so too. It's funny because it's something you might do in the beginning because you don't have any money to sleep in your, when you're a teen, young, you get the van life thing with the teenagers or 20-year-olds. They're doing it because they can't afford a hotel. But then, for us, like we got older and then we could afford a hotel and then stayed in hotels and then we realised it's actually better in the van.
Yeah. I suppose that's like we're talking about individuals with a spectrum. People's van life is on a spectrum too, from how simple you want to make it to how opulent you want to make it. The option and the choice is yours. Is there anything else that I haven't covered off on that you wanted to touch on? Well, thanks for coming in today. I know it's was at short notice. I think we organised this within a couple of weeks, but it was great to have you on board, understand more about Achtung Campers. For those people out there that want to get in touch with you, where can they find you if they want to come and see you talk about a van and van life?
Yeah, we're on Mercer Street in Geelong, sort of near the main train station. Yep. Otherwise, our website is achtung.camper.com.au. We're on Instagram as well,
and YouTube and
Facebook
Pinterest
and all the
and everywhere
others.
else.
All the others.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Tania, thank you so much for joining me.
It was great.
And I look forward to maybe around 2 or 3 in the future when we can talk about how my van conversion goes.
Sure, no worries.
All right. Thanks, Tania. Cheers. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.